the first question goes that, do you remember when you heard metal music for the first time?
Yes, I do. My first memory is I was watching some sort of, it was some sort of like MTV show where it was like karaoke or something. I can't remember what it was called, but they had people spin a wheel or something where they had to sing a song, and there was one guy that was like piercings and bald and like he had tattoos and stuff, and he ended up doing Enter Sandman from Metallica, and it was so good that the hosts were just like blown away, and me watching it, I was just like, what was that? Like, this is amazing. That's my first like memory of it. But then again, you could always question like, what is metal? Because I've heard Black Sabbath before that. So like, I guess Metallica is what I consider metal. But I heard Iron Man and Paranoid and all that before that. My dad listened to that kind of stuff. So pretty early on.
So what was in metal that sort of like caught your attention first?
My guess is probably how aggressive it was. Like, I don't think at the time I consciously knew that that's what it was, but something about it just had the energy that I guess matched like where I was, where, it felt like, for a pretty quiet kid, I was very, very quiet, very introverted. I think that internal energy and internal existence that I had related to that sound or that energy or that just, something that felt moving. That's my best guess. I truly don't have an answer to that. I mean, I don't really know why I like a lot of the things that I like. That's just how it ended up. Why do I like wearing all black and makeup, or why do I like Halloween as my favorite holiday? I don't know, but that's how it happened, and I would not change any of it.
So what made you form a band, and what made you become a vocalist?
As far as forming a band, I think, it was early high school. Actually, no, it was before early. It was 7th or 8th grade. I was playing in the school band, like the school marching band type thing, and I just really liked music and wanted to be around music. And at that time is when like a lot more bands started to become popular with other friends, and we're just like, let's just hang out and jam. Like we like Blink-182, we like Metallica, we like the Misfits. Let's just learn these songs and play them together. And we learned how to play drums, we learned how to play guitar, and it was just a cool way for friends to hang out after school and kind of just push all that aside and just focus on like what made us happy and what made us feel like we had a place to exist that was exclusive to that feeling or that separation from real life or reality, and then it just grew from there.
So when you started doing like more extreme type of vocals, like screaming and growling, were there like some idols that you looked up to? And when you started doing them, were you first doing covers and sort of like mimicking your idols before sort of like figuring out your own way to do things?
As far as like mimicking idols and everything, I mean, Jonathan Davis is a huge one. I'm fortunate enough to have been into music, to have seen like the live broadcasting of Woodstock '99. I actually just talked about this in a different interview, watching Korn play Blind and seeing the crowd, the wave of the crowd. That's an iconic, that is to me top 5 most iconic heavy music moments in history, is that performance. So like, I remember watching that, and then the DVD came out shortly after, and I used to dress up in like my coolest clothes, and whenever my parents weren't home, I put the DVD on, and I would do the like headbanging, just like Jonathan Davis, and try to like learn how to scream and growl and all that stuff. So I'd say very early on, in terms of like the heaviest music, guitar was very much, Metallica. Vocals was Jonathan Davis, Corey Taylor, the bands of that era that were, you know, massively popular. So yeah.
So did it take like long time to figure out the right technique for the screaming, and were you losing your voice in the early days?
Yeah, my approach to screaming was probably the worst way you could go about it. Just stand there and scream. I remember at many band practices, I would just go for it, and then first song in, 30 seconds in, I just had absolutely no voice left. I didn't know anything about warming up. I didn't know anything about technique. It was just, I'm gonna go scream in a microphone, and it was terrible. But I just did it because I wanted to. I mean, I would literally try to scream or sing along to everything. I remember, you know, The Used was a big band for a lot of us in high school, and I would scream Box Full of Sharp Objects 100 times in a row. Then I would switch over and I would start doing, you know, songs from Follow the Leader. Like it didn't matter. I just wanted to just be trying it and finding a way to make it work. And I think eventually, after enough trial and error and especially failure, it just found a way.
So what kind of memories do you have when it comes to the first proper tour that you did? Were you already ready, like stamina-wise, to do show after show after show?
We didn't, I mean, the first couple tours we did were like, you know, week long here and there, and no, they weren't any better than band practice where, you know, there were, my God, there were moments where we were playing songs that didn't have lyrics. We wanted to go on tour, and we didn't have enough songs for like a full set, so we had music but not lyrics or singing, so I would just go and scream stuff. I'm so happy that, you know, YouTube didn't exist back in our earliest days. There are some videos, but yeah, man, there's some pretty wild times back in that day where it was like, let's just go on tour and get that experience and just do the whole bit of it that we want to be a part of. And I had to find my way. I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm still finding my way now. I think that, you know, working with people that have been able to help me more recently, I feel like there's been a noticeable shift in the past like year because of working with people, and I think on this tour that we're on, it's the best my voice has ever sounded. There's some shows that I step away from, and I'm just like, that might be my favorite vocal performance I've ever had. I don't know. Like we had a show in, it was called Yera on Air, and that was just, I've walked away from that being like, that might literally be the best vocal performance I've ever had. It felt great. But that's such an insane difference from 15 years ago or 20 years ago where we were just going out there doing whatever our best and doing whatever we can. It's pretty funny to think about. I don't even know if I answered your question. I feel like I'm doing podcast style rather than answering questions like interview style, but here we are.
In terms of like warming up, how much has your like warm-up routines changed from the early days to now on? And do you have like a specific routine that you follow nowadays?
I mean, you know what I love about this question? I get to reveal something completely out of the actual answer to the question later, but I used to not warm up, and then I think the first time I started to understand that, hey, maybe I should, was when the Zen of Screaming DVDs started to become more popular. Melissa Cross is, you know, amazing, and I think that she helped so many heavy artists or screamers or even singers really kind of find at least a template of how you could warm up and go to from there. And I worked with her a few times and just felt like that's kind of when I introduced, like, I should warm up, I should prep myself, I should stretch, I should do the, you know, breathing stuff. And that's when it started. And at this point, what I do now is I just go behind. I have to go where there's music. I cannot just sit here and warm up. I can't go on the bus and warm up. I have to go wherever there is a stage with a band playing on it so I could feel the music. And then in my headphones, I play any one of our songs or multiples of our songs, and I start lower, and I build up the octaves, and then I start screaming, and it's like a whole mental pathway of how I do it.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so the thing I'm going to reveal is people are always asking me, what's your Spotify end of the year playlist? And I can't show anybody because I use Spotify to play our songs while I warm up, and then everything's Motionless, so like I can't, what am I going to do? Be like, check out my Spotify, Motionless is the #1 band, Cyberhex is the top played song, but that's what it was because Cyberhex is the first song I start to on this album cycle, so play that through twice, sing the whole song in a lower octave after I do the like, I start with the Melissa Cross vibration, the zzz, then I do the ohs, and then I when I work with David, I do the stuff that he's helped me with. Then I'll start singing the low octaves of songs. Then I'll start a next song that's higher octave and higher, all the way to, I think Reincarnate's my last song of the warm-up. So it's like a 25-minute ordeal that it's not exactly my favorite thing to do every day, but I feel like it has dramatically helped not hurt myself, not feel struggle or strain, and it feels like I go up on stage a lot more prepared and ready.
About like drinks and foods, are there like some drinks or foods that you have felt that they affect your vocal cords somehow, that you don't want to take them before the show, or something the opposite side that it helps you before the show?
I'm not really a firm believer in like the tea thing. I think tea, like throat coat tea, is more of like like when it's cold out, I'll do tea because I don't do well in the cold at all in general. So like my voice feels really tight in the winter, so I'll do that like earlier in the day to kind of just make it feel like I'm warmed up. I don't think that there's any one thing that works. I can tell you what doesn't work, which is sugary stuff or anything, you know, that might cause like acid reflux, which a lot of people deal with, including myself. So surprisingly, if I had to say that there's one thing that I will stand by, it's like ginger and turmeric shots, like the little concentrated shots. We love them. I do them twice a day, a little bit before I warm up, and it sounds counterproductive to take something spicy like that, but it like helps with reflux, so, or me at least. So yeah, I'll say ginger turmeric shots.
So obviously you've released now 6 albums with Motionless in White. Are there like some specific albums that you could pinpoint from the discography where you have taken a big step forward as a vocalist?
I think from Graveyard Shift, well, okay, there's 2 moments. From Reincarnate to Graveyard Shift, I felt that there was a big jump, and then from Graveyard Shift to Disguise and Scoring the End of the World, I thought there was another jump. I don't feel that the difference between Disguise and Scoring is as much as from Reincarnate to Graveyard Shift and Graveyard Shift to Disguise, but overall, from 2014 through 2016, that's when I felt like, you know, I've voiced it out in interviews before where I felt like that's when I took myself seriously as a vocalist. I still to this day feel like I'm more of a musician than I am a vocalist, but you know, I had to accept like I am the singer of the band, so I need to like figure that out and do better. And how are we ever going to go to another level if I'm, you know, so limited on what I can do, or if my performances aren't at the level of the music? And I think that's most present in Graveyard Shift, and then so on.
So do you have a specific way to hold the microphone when you perform?
Well, our front of house is right behind us. I could definitely tell you on what he's advised me, which is don't cup the mic, which everyone knows. I cup the mic for screaming because of like, I guess it's just kind of how it's always felt like better to me. Like it feels weird to hold the mic here for screaming than it does to like, you know, get into it. But that might be literally just a mental, I'm sure it's just a mental thing, because it's always going to sound better if the full capsule is, you know, available. But I think for screaming it's more forgiving. Part of the better performances that I feel like I've had in the last year is 2 things which Logan would definitely agree on, is not pulling away from the mic too much. I used to pull away a lot more. Now I'm just right on it. I do not leave or go further than that if I don't have to. And then holding the mic at the bottom of the capsule rather than, damn, I want him to look over here. He just got up and walked away. Holding it, underneath the capsule rather than cupping it, because it's just going to give you more dynamic and clarity of the vocals. So for singing, that's been helpful.
So what were your parents' reactions when they heard first time you screaming your lungs out?
I think that they, at that point, I didn't start singing and screaming until a little ways into playing guitar and drums. So I think that they were already proper annoyed at that point to where it didn't hit as hard as like maybe when I would be playing drums for 12 hours a day over the summer or something. My dad used to make fun of it. Now he's fine with it. My mom, I think she's always just kind of been like, you do whatever you love, honey. Like that's fine, but doesn't love it. But they've both really grown into like understanding it. Now they could listen to other bands. Like my dad could listen to, Five Finger Death Punch or Avenged Sevenfold or something and be like, oh, this is pretty great. Like it's not a weird shock to them anymore.
So, any last question, any kind of advice that you would like to give to a young metal vocalist who is just about the journey? Anything that comes into your mind?
I would say try your best. What's amazing now, which I didn't have as much, is a wealth of information on YouTube and all of their social media. Like, I think the only thing that bands in my day had was Melissa Cross and the Zen of Screaming, and then word of mouth from each other. Now you have Melissa, you have David from the Extreme Vocal Institute, who is the guy now, and everyone should watch his stuff, because even if you don't get it initially, you could try different techniques and find what works for you. There's no one way for everybody to do it, just like so many other things in life. And I think that he really can help somebody find their voice. Melissa's very much like the fundamentals of the mechanics of how things work, how you warm up and understand what's happening. Both of them are. So I'd say look into their stuff. And then, if it hurts, don't keep doing it. I should learn from that, or have learned from that the hard way. If you're really hurting yourself, then something's wrong. But at the same time, how can someone who learned their voice through hurting themselves many times really tell you not to do that, because eventually you'll find it? So that's a tough one, but just look on the internet. There's plenty of people that have a lot of information on how to help from a way that I could never even conceive or how I would tell you. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, Chris, for doing this.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you.